Hi, I'm Dr. Rachel Felber. I'm an ER doctor and a metabolic health coach. If you're a woman struggling to lose weight, this video is going to teach you why that's probably the case, which of these two categories you fall under, and how you should and shouldn't diet based on which category you're in. So we'll start with group A. This is overconsumption. This is a category that most women think they fall under. If you're a woman in this category, then your excess fat is due to more calories coming in on average each day than going out. That's what's leading to excess fat in this group. Now, for a really long time, we thought that this was the be all end all to weight loss. For men, for women, it doesn't matter. If you are overweight or you're trying to lose weight, then you need to restrict your calories and or increase your energy expenditure, so exercise more. Now, that is the case to some degree for some women, but certainly not all women. And you might have found that that's the case if you've been in a calorie deficit to lose weight and you haven't lost weight, or maybe it even caused you to gain weight. Now, men, it's the case for most men. Maybe this comes as a shock to you, but men's bodies and women's bodies are very different. Our physiology is different, our hormones are different, and the way that our bodies respond to being in a calorie deficit is different. It's pretty interesting as to why, but the short version is women's bodies are made to reproduce. So when our bodies sense low access to resources, or dieting for a long time, or you're in a very deep calorie deficit, eating 1,200 calories or less in a day, or just for a long time, women's bodies respond by clinging on to fat. Okay, because we're not bringing in enough resources. So your body sees this as an emergency situation. There's no way you'd be able to carry a baby to full term if you're not consuming calories, appropriate nutrients, fat, protein, all the things that we need. So the body responds by slowing down the metabolism, changes the hormone milieu so that we keep fat, because your body is very smart and it's looking to the future thinking, okay, if we're going to need to carry a baby in this body, we're going to need these fat stores for energy for all of these processes, and not enough is coming in. So we're going to really be sure to hold on to the fat that we have. Okay, because our fat is our long-term energy source, right? The carbs are our short-term energy source and fat is our long-term energy source. So your body's going to hold on to it. So men, their bodies don't have that same response. Most men go in a calorie deficit, they lose weight. So you might have found that if you and your partner, you and your husband are going on a diet together and you're cutting calories, he loses 5 pounds in the first week and you either don't lose anything, or maybe you even gain more weight if you're not a woman in category A. Now if you are a woman in category A, that is going to be the approach for you. Decrease calorie intake, increase energy expenditure. And I'll talk about that a little bit later. And it's not just, diet as hard as you can for a long time until you lose all the weight you want. It has to be precise and organized. But in general, that's the approach that will work for women in group A. Now, as I said at the beginning, most women think they're in group A and they think, okay, I need to lose weight. I need to eat less. I need to exercise more. But in fact, many, many, many women are in group B, which is totally different. Women who are in this group, their issue is not overconsumption, but rather the metabolism has taken a hit, probably over months, maybe years, maybe even decades. And decreasing your calories and increasing your energy expenditure is not going to work. And in fact, it's often going to work against you. So what do you do if you're a woman in this group? You need to fix your metabolism. You need to fix the engine that's running the whole show. So how do you know which group you're in? You might know off the bat if you've been trying to lose weight by cutting calories and you know that you're doing it right. You know that you're in a calorie deficit and you're exercising and you're not losing any weight. If that's the case for you, then it's probably enough. To say that you're in category B. But if that's not the case, or you're not really sure, then here's a pretty good way to determine it. You're probably in category A if you meet all of these criteria. You are premenopausal, meaning you're not perimenopausal and you're not postmenopausal. So you're a younger woman. You have not dieted recently. You haven't been in a calorie deficit recently. And you don't have a long history of dieting in your life, meaning you're not going in and out of different diets and cutting calories and cutting out whole food groups. So if you check all of these boxes, you are premenopausal, you don't have a long history of dieting, and you don't have a recent history of dieting, then chances are good that you'll fit into category A. This is also assuming that you don't have any underlying metabolic or hormonal conditions or disease processes that slow your metabolism or have a negative impact on your metabolism. Now, how do you know if you're in category B? First of all, if you don't meet all of those criteria, you're probably in category B. So if you're perimenopausal, just by virtue of being perimenopausal or postmenopausal, your metabolism works differently. I don't think that's news to anybody, but it's enough that the calories in, calories out of group A is probably not going to apply to you. So if you're perimenopausal, postmenopausal, or you have a long history of dieting in your life, or you have a recent history of dieting, meaning in the last 3 or 4 months or so, you've been in a calorie deficit, or you've cut out a whole set of macronutrients, like you're not eating any fat, or you've totally cut out carbs, something like that will probably put you in this category. So this again means your metabolism is not really working efficiently or the way that is optimal to promote fat loss. Okay, so let's see, we have a few more. So this is a long history of dieting. If you've recently cut calories very low, if you eat generally low quality foods. So if you're somebody whose diet consists largely of processed, highly processed foods, and you're therefore missing a substantial amount of nutrients or nutrient variety, then you might fall into this category. I mentioned missing entire macronutrient groups. If you have poor sleep quality or quantity, you're likely going to be in this group. High levels of stress. I mean, these kind of all go together. So if you're somebody who does not have a lot of lean muscle tissue, that alone impacts the metabolism. Low quantity of muscle tissue alone can impact the metabolism in such a way that it makes it a little bit harder to lose fat. And then last week, we have medical problems on here. So there's several medical conditions, PCOS, hypothyroidism, loads of other ones. Obviously insulin resistance, prediabetes, diabetes. These conditions can affect the metabolism in such a way that it makes fat loss not harder, but different. You need a different approach. If that's the case, then the calories in, calories out is not likely to work for you. So if you do have a medical condition or you suspect that you might, it's definitely recommended to have those evaluated and managed by your doctor, because it's going to be much harder to lose fat if you have an untreated underlying metabolic condition. Okay, so now we know the difference between these two, and we know who falls under each one, and we know how to tell which category you fall under. So how do you lose the fat based on which category you're in? Okay, both of them, I decide the path for fat loss for both of these includes building muscle. Okay. Increased muscle tissue is the most reliable and efficient way to lose fat. Okay. So what does that mean? This is not a video about strength training, but I have to touch on it because it is so integral to fat loss. Briefly, in order to build muscle, you need to strength train. Strength train means moving your muscles against resistance. This doesn't have to mean getting under a heavy barbell. It can be dumbbells, it can be bands, it can be body weight if you're just getting started, but it has to be moving your muscles against resistance with progressive overload. If you're watching this video, you've probably heard of progressive overload at this point, but in case you haven't, it just means progressively increasing the workload on your muscles. So let's say you're doing an exercise with the same weight, the same number of reps, the same number of sets, week after week after week. Your muscles are not going to grow. They're not going to adapt. They're going to say, hey, this is a stimulus that I've been exposed to. I've already grown and adapted to deal with this stimulus, this level of difficulty. And there's no reason for me to continue to grow and adapt because I'm comfortable with this. So that's why we need to have a progression increase in difficulty. So either increase the weight over time, increase the number of reps over time to cause the muscles to grow. So that's the very brief overview of what strength training is. So regardless of which category you're in, if you're trying to lose fat, strength training is essential. So strength training for both, good sleep for both. Unfortunately, I wish it didn't matter as much as it did because I have two little kids, but it does matter for so many other things, but especially if we're talking about fat loss, building muscle, getting lean, staying lean, getting yourself an efficient, healthy metabolism. Good quality and quantity of sleep does matter. Lowering your stress as much as you can, obviously, also easier said than done, but these things do play a role. So if you've got your diet on point and your exercise on point, but your sleep is crap and you're stressed out because of all this life stuff, unfortunately, that is going to make fat loss harder. So it's something that you have to deal with. Okay, so specifically diet. So if you believe you're in this category, then your approach to fat loss in terms of diet is going to be tracking your calories, right? Because you need to be in a calorie deficit. You need to know that the calories that you're burning every day is more than the calories that you're taking in. It basically does come down to simple math for women in this category at the beginning. So how do you know the amount of calories that you're shooting for? So I've been talking about being in a calorie deficit. Generally, this means you want to be taking in about 10 to 20% fewer calories than your maintenance. Okay, so quickly, maintenance and TDEE are the same number. So your TDEE, your total daily energy expenditure, that is the number of calories that you burn per day on average. So this includes your resting metabolic rate, the calories burned in digesting your food, the calories burned in dedicated exercise, and if you've heard of NEAT, non-exercise activity thermogenesis, the calories that you burn in all the everyday activities, the movements that you do. So I mean, me just standing here moving my arms around and kind of pacing around, that burns calories. And throughout the day, it adds up. It can add up to, even thousands of calories based on the person's activity level. So all of these together give you your amount of calories that you burn on average in a day, your TDEE. Now, if you were to eat that same number of calories every day, your weight should theoretically stay the same, right? The same number of calories coming in as is going out, maintenance, stable weight. So you want to find out what your TDEE is, which we'll talk about in a minute. And depending on how aggressive you want to be with your diet, eat 10 to 20% less than that each day. So how do you find out what your TDEE is? There are a few ways to do it. Easiest and quickest and cheapest is you can type in Google TDEE calculator, fill out some fields with some information about yourself, and it'll give you an estimate. It's an estimate. So it's not super accurate, but you can get it in a minute. Another way is to track your food with a tracking app. I like MyFitnessPal. They have a free version. And without making any changes to your diet, because you want accurate information, track everything that you eat for, if you could do a week, that'd be great. If you can do a few days, that's good enough. And you'll see, as long as you're eating like you've normally been eating recently without any weight changes, then you should get a pretty good account of about how many calories you're taking in a day. Now, the third way is the most accurate, the most expensive, the least convenient, but it's an option. You could go to a facility in your city where they do metabolic testing, and they, it's something like $50 up to $150 depending on the city, and they do some testing and they give you your resting metabolic rate, which is totally accurate. So you take that number, your resting metabolic rate, and you multiply it by the exercise multiplier. And that's a number you can find online, which basically says, how active are you in a day? So if you're super active, then that number's high. You multiply that by your resting metabolic rate, and that gives you your maintenance, right? Because you're going to be burning more calories in a day if you're very, very active. If you're very sedentary, that number is very low. You multiply that lower number by your resting metabolic rate, and you get a lower TDEE or your maintenance, which makes sense because you're burning less if you're not very active. Okay, then it's easy. Once you have your TDEE, you subtract 10 to 20% of that, and that will be your calorie deficit. So it's out of the scope for this video to talk about going in and out of different diet phases, but you don't want to be in your calorie deficit for a very long time because that would eventually cause your metabolism to respond in negative way and kind of move you over into this category. And you get to the point where your deficit doesn't work anymore, you're dropping your calories even lower and you're not losing any more weight, and it can lead to sort of snowballing negative effects. So you don't want to go deeper than 20% lower than your maintenance, and you don't want to go for more than 3 months, really. So after that, you would transition into a maintenance phase, and that's another video. But to get started, if you are a woman in category A, that is how you get your calorie goal. And eating like that and tracking everything that you eat and tracking your macros and knowing that you're getting enough of each of the macros and not too much, combined with strength training and keeping overall stress low, rest and recovery adequate, that should really get you some good results in terms of fat loss. Now, if you're in category B, your approach is going to be completely different. You do not want to eat in a calorie deficit because that's probably what got you here to begin with, and it's probably going to make things worse for you. So what you want to do is eat at maintenance, or what I call maintenance plus, which is just a little bit above maintenance, maybe 100 or 200 calories above maintenance, because your more immediate goal is to build muscle and get your metabolism healthy and efficient. They go hand in hand. The more high quality muscle tissue you have, the more efficient your metabolism is going to be. So that's your number one goal. Fat loss will happen when you're working toward that goal. Okay. So you're not going to be thinking, I'm trying to lose fat. I need to move more and eat less. That's totally not your thing. Your thing is, I need to build muscle. That's going to fix my metabolism. It's going to make fat loss a lot easier. Now, you will be losing fat using this approach, and it might not be as rapid as a woman who is following this path, but it will happen. And once you have gotten to the point that you have some nice muscle tissue on you, your metabolism has responded by increasing its efficiency, your resting metabolic rate will increase, your hormone milieu will be healthier, you'll sleep better, you'll have better energy for better workouts, digestion will be better, mood will be better, everything will be better. I promise you, it's amazing. I've seen it over and over and over countless times. So this really works. I know that for a lot of women, it feels scary to eat more if you're trying to lose weight, but that is what's going to help you if you're in group B. So you have to trust the process. So you figure out your maintenance the same way. One of the three ways: you either calculate it online, you can track your food for a week, or you can do one of these metabolic testing. So get your TDEE, which is your maintenance number, and eat at that number or just above it. Again, you need to pay attention to macros. You need enough protein, enough carbs, enough fat. If you're eating like that, you're working out hard, you're getting in the gym or your garage, but you're lifting weights, you're doing progressive overload, you're lifting heavier when you can, your rest and recovery is good, you're managing your stress the best you can, you will notice significant body composition changes a lot faster than you think. Okay. Honestly, I'm not exaggerating. Within a couple months, you should notice really significant differences in terms of how your clothes fit, how you look in the mirror. People will notice a difference in you. Even if the scale doesn't change, your weight might not change. Your weight might even go up. Okay. You're putting on muscle and you're losing fat. Your weight might change. That's not a metric you should look at. Okay. You should look at how your clothes fit. You can do waist and hip measurements if you want. But this, even though it's scary and different and maybe unlike any advice you've heard before, this is what's going to work if you're a woman in this category. And a lot of women watching this video are coming in thinking they're in this category and they need to eat less and do more cardio or exercise more, and will be surprised to find that you're in this category. But if you've tried other things and they haven't worked, I implore you to give this a try because it works. It just works. So if you have any questions about this, I would love to hear from you. My email is below. and I'm excited to hear some feedback about how it's working for you. Now, I do one-on-one coaching for women. If you're interested in this, you can find out all about it at rachelfelber.com.